One is our meetings, and people are talking about our meetings, like for example Sarah and Alicia talking about house meetings. Someone's got a house, someone's got an idea, getting that together and holding a meeting, and other people have talked about meetings like Andrea and the one that she's planning to do. So developing ideas around the meetings we have so more people are involved in that is what I'd like to see, so that we get a more representative view of what that is, as long as we can have a balance. And that, I suppose, takes us to orchestrate in a way. That's one thing. The second thing is what's been interesting about this and what we've got better and better at is giving space for people to network. Instead of just having meetings, we've allowed people time to get together right now and network. But what we're not good at is the collaboration that goes after it, how it's sustainable, how it keeps going. That's where we need help. That's where I could do with everybody's input, as many people as possible to tell us how we can make that better. And the fourth thing in terms of vision is, you talked about, Pam, about the collage thing, about looking at the skills and expertise we've got within our network and how that can be used. We're beginning to look at that now, because when you look at our network, the Meetup one, the Facebook one, the LinkedIn one, all of it, we've got a tremendous bank of skills and expertise and knowledge. And if we can make that available, not just to each other, but to other groups outside, not only can we enhance what we do, we can actually develop it as a business for those people as well, in some cases. And they can also do pro bono work as well. So we can do the social side of it and the business side of it and expand it. So we're in a position now of trying to look at an order. We've got people like Andrea who does mediation. I keep wanting to say meditation, mediation. You work with the public engagement with barristers. We've got someone who does a lot of work on community engagement. We've got Julie's not here tonight, but does work with housing associations. You've done work in collaboration. We have a whole series of people doing a whole series of things. We've got organisations like Vicky was coming tonight from Birmingham, but trains were cancelled. She runs a social enterprise and is putting on with us a meeting on family policy, and maybe a meeting in the House of Commons in January. And she does a lot of work that could be replicated. The guy who spoke at the Global Summit at our meeting, Peter Tommen, that's how you pronounce his second name, sports inspired, has created a lot of work with young people without getting any government money at all. And he's done something that can be replicated. Now we can take those examples and those people out to other organisations and other people. So we're looking at how we can develop that. So that's another vision. So it's to carry on with our public engagement, find a new way of collaborating, which we're weak at, and looking at the strength of our network and seeing how we can make use of that strength, not only for ourselves but for other organisations outside. So that to me is the sort of direction.
Yeah. Can I pick up on one word that you said there, which was the replication thing? Because it seems to me one of the key differences between the way we are beginning to do things now compared to the top-down 20th century model is that we don't go to scale by making something bigger. Yeah. We go to scale by copying and replicating, and that's something about the skills. Hey, that's a good idea. I could do that like this.
If Vicky was here, she would say absolutely 3 cheers, because that's what she's about. She said, listen, we've got to stop innovating. It's there. It's out there. Good practice is there. We just don't know how to use it. Governments, all they ever do is come up with new ideas. They do not look at what exists. Yeah. And they don't listen to what goes on.
Yeah.
And they try to find a way of making them listen.
And what we need is get that. Sorry.
That's what the Chinese do.
I'm going to bring it back.
I was just going to say, someone from the commercial sector, it is something that's really noticeably different, is that people are more willing to share ideas, and there's no sort of ownership of ideas. It's like, no, you do it too. I mean, if 2 people can do it, that's even better. We can reach more people. Whereas in the commercial sector, it's my idea. I'm not going to tell you what it is, because I want to make money out of it. And so that's something that I really, really notice.
That shift over into collaboration, replication, and absolutely that it's open knowledge instead of I'm going to keep it for myself. That we'll all get richer by sharing.
So on that we've agreed that collaboration and replication is what we're looking to do to share good practice. Anyone else got any other ideas about practicalities of our next steps from this meeting, how we help create that, actually?
I have a question because I don't yet know the group well. Is there a clear mission statement on the group, in the sense that I think let's follow him a little bit on what she said before. Are we diluting ourselves maybe too much and trying to do too many things, or maybe we should focus the networking, I don't know, political action, women's rights, and 4 or 5 specific things that we may be able to engage more people in. This is just a question.
It's a question that's worth considering. I mean, there isn't a statement on our site. I wouldn't say it's a clear mission statement, and it needs to change as we change. But I think most of us who started it are very proud of our broad brush attempt. You know, we don't want to narrow it down too much, but we do want to create themes. So we want to go some way towards what you said without dismissing other areas.
The other thing is
you're basically open to new.
Yeah.
I'd say that I mean, as relatively new to the group, I suppose, I really appreciate the broad brush thing because there are actually lots of events. I mean, it's not like you're doing one a month or something like that. There are lots of events.
That's how
you
I got
can't
it,
possibly go to all of them anyway, so you can pick the ones that suit
So
you.
in my interest too.
Yeah. So in many ways, you tailor it to yourself and you tailor it to your specific interests much better, actually.
one thing that's becoming a more frequent outcome of meetings is the lack of outcomes. People are saying, can we do something with this? Or is it just going to be left here on the table having had a nice chat about it? So there's been a lot of call from people saying, can we go out there and make a difference? Rather than just talk about it. And as Francis said, we've got such a huge bank of skills to just use them for a talking shop. It seems, a bit of a waste and tragedy, really.
But I wouldn't say that educating people is ever a lack of outcomes.
That's
I
good.
take on board what you're saying.
That's good, but there's
I've
call for more.
taken away a lot and used what I've learned from meetings. So
Talk is action.
Yeah, that's part of it, but it's not the only action. It's not the only action.
But maybe
It's part of it.
Oh, sorry. Go on.
I also think that what we need to do as a group, I'm talking about now, we put a lot of limits, like Francis, you just said about, governments don't look at what there is. We're carrying that inside ourselves. What do we do with it? We as a group have the power to take that inside ourselves and resolve it for us inside ourselves, because we are contributing to the limits that are out there. And I'm not saying that, practically you'll get results straight away, but if you remove energetically the limits you're putting through your thoughts, like they won't do this, but in fact actually we know they don't, but on the other hand a lot of it is created by the mindset that we all carry. And if we want to change that, we've got to start with ourselves as individuals and groups. Now everybody, we're all very different, and people think, oh no, that's all. It isn't, because in fact, like, that's where you start. You start with what you yourself are carrying, because everything that we're seeing out there, we're carrying it inside ourselves. And so if we want something, we have to have it inside ourselves. We have to resolve it inside ourselves first. But if we're going to say, oh well, we know the government doesn't give things. I know well, because the club I'm going to, just because it doesn't correspond to their idea of clubs, and they ignore all the wonderful things that are happening inside in it. And what I'm saying is, like, we can all dismiss it and say, oh well, that's the local authority, they this, that and the other, and they are, but we're contributing to it by the way we think. Sorry. I feel very strongly about it.
There's actually two things that I wrote last weekend and also at the end of last week, which is this thing about the them and us, which in some ways is very much a last century thing, where, there's them in power and us that receive what we're told to do or what we're told to buy or whatever, Somehow there seem to be people who do and people who don't. Like, some people were the people who make television programs, some people are the people who write books, and then there's people like me who buy the books and watch the TV programs, And we've kind of accepted that we are the consumers, we're the ones who do what we're told. And the big difference now is that actually we are able to do things as individuals. We're able to join together and cluster very quickly around what we want to do, and do something quite small but quite powerful, and something else quite small and quite powerful. And then as we do those little collaborations, we learn more what we might do next, you know?
But how one thinks...
And so I agree with what you're saying. It's right, it's not them and us. You know,
agreed, yes.
That we're all
what
the
you're
us.
saying, Margarita, it's the mindset. I think most of us got what you were saying there about mindsets, because most of us here, or all of us, I think, are educated. And I don't mean just academically, I mean in life and experience, emotionally, all those things. What if you're taking someone who's not educated in life? In fact, their only education is that they've had physical or sexual abuse, and they are 14 years of age, their elder brother's on drugs, and so they've decided to go take a gun and have drugs and get themselves into a right old mess. What then, if your mindset is that from year dot you've only been given role models which are counter to what you're saying about having that awareness? So the education starts, if it's not going to be in their immediate environment from parents and teachers, and religious figures too, if that's their thing, you must be able to infiltrate some way, because the media is not going to help them. In fact, the media tells, like you were saying, that there are people who have lots of money, and the rest of you just make sure that you get those people lots of money. And there's an us and them approach. So you have to really infiltrate on many different levels. It's a huge project, actually, and it's worthwhile doing.
But could that be something that's the next step for each of us that we take away from this? That from maybe one of the things we say today is, as a practical next step, each one of us commits to speaking to one person and trying to encourage them. So one person that has a negative mindset, that is struggling with the barriers and the challenges that they're facing, and trying to encourage them between now and then maybe the next networking meeting, and coming back with some feedback on that. And maybe over the course of that gap between now and the next one of these meetups, maybe through your interaction with that one person, and it doesn't even matter if you don't actually know them, maybe you see somebody on a bus or the tube and you think, okay, they don't look very happy, maybe we have a chat with them. Maybe there's somebody you see crying or, arguing with their children. Maybe you could just approach them, as long as it's safe to do so, and have a chat and try and encourage and build that relationship, and start getting them to try and change their mental limitations, and then we can bring that back and share those stories maybe at the next networking meeting.
It's much even simpler than that. You see somebody on a train, or anybody, you have power, and we all have nuclear power inside ourselves, and it's as simple as this: sending out something from your heart to that person. It's as simple as that. And I know it sounds simplistic, but actually it works. But we don't give it a chance.
But that's an important way of actually making individual change. What I'd like as well people to take away is the point that the Jazz raised, and the others have raised, Pam's raised, and this whole point about collaboration and moving on. We deal with lots and lots of themes, and lots of things happen that we don't know about. I know people who started transition towns because of our meetings, who started a business because of our meetings, who said to us, thank you very much, you've helped me to give me confidence in having these meetings. I've gone up and spoken, never done it before. Tip of the iceberg, but we haven't done enough, and we need to collaborate. What we're weak at doing is that, and that's where we need help. Help not because we're weak at it, because we don't have time to do the program we do and do the collaboration. So we need other people to come in and help with the collaboration. So it's no good talking about models of collaboration. It's no good just saying collaboration is important. We need models put into action. We need people to actually develop it. Take a theme that we're doing, like for example the family policy one, and say, how can we move that on into a collaborative framework? Come up with a mini strategy. Need someone to do that.
But it's what Jazz is saying is that actually we have lots of different meetings on lots of different aspects, which is really good because it really engages lots of different people. But actually we need maybe more follow-up meetings so that people can build on that initial meeting, understand what's in the group, what people want to do with it.
You have to be careful though, because what we don't want is meetings about meetings. And one thing I've really tried to work hard on since the beginning of this year, since Francis asked me to become learning coordinator, was to see how do you go about collaborating in a practical way. So I spoke to quite a few people, looked at how other people were collaborating, and then tried to come up with something that perhaps Global Net 21 could actually use. And it's fascinating, but the first 3 steps I found of the process of collaboration are connection, conversation, and then contribution. There's about 7 key steps, but those are the first 3. If you don't have a connection, as Margarita was saying, at a certain level, whether it's mental or at a heart level, then there's no conversations going to begin. And furthermore, if the conversations are not about the right things, then you're not going to get people to contribute to each other, let alone ever get to the point where they collaborate on the longer term. Just getting those first 3 things right, finding a way of making effective connections, finding a way of delivering and facilitating effective conversations between the right people, and then building a facility or channel that allows people to contribute to one another and plant the seeds for longer term collaboration. If people could just do those 3 things, that would often lead to momentum starting to be built up. But the biggest issue is the connection. Now, the connection, people will connect based on one of 3 reasons. They'll connect because they're going to help each other in some kind of way, empowerment orientation. They connect because they're going to have some fun with each other. Okay, some kind of entertainment element or stimulation element as opposed to a support element. But sometimes it's a mix of the 2. They want to have some fun, but they want to learn something too. Yeah. And the mix of the 2 is engagement. So before you can make a connection with someone, you really need to get that mix right in terms of how much are you going to focus on empowering people, how much is it about fun, and how much is it just about getting bums on seats, getting the engagement so that you can begin the process at least. And I know Francis has got a particular view on how much Global Net 21 should be focused on each of those components.
I was going to say is if we could turn that into an action plan around one of our meetings as a pilot, that would be great, but we need to do it. We need an action plan around the theory. I know Nikki wants to move us on.
Yeah, I think there's some really useful programs and software that could be used. I know you like IT. I know my young people can tell you, because I don't like IT, what the programs are. But there's some really good programs that you can use where you can share information with each other and monitor the projects and monitor the collaboration, and it's all free. And it just, like, every time anyone does anything, wherever they are in the world and they're on that project, they can communicate with you very easily that they've ticked that off their to-do list, and your project or a piece of work that you're collaborating on is actually moving forward without, in our daily lives of all this difficulty of communicating and no one ever having time. That's quite a good way of tracking the progress of projects and communicating remotely with people. But I think we need to kind of wrap it up, and I want to give you time just before we go.
I was just going to say really quickly, so I've been feeling there's been a lot of collaborations happened. I mean, I've been going to these things for a couple of years now, and every time I've made some significant connections with people and things that I followed up on, and I would be surprised if there wasn't a lot of collaboration already going on, but it's just not reported back. And so I think a lot of it's just going to be
maybe we need a system of reporting. Yeah, maybe that's also something. But actually, I was going to say in response to your, what you were saying, that people complain that at the end of the meeting there's no real action. Ask the question. I think we should do that as a matter of course. What are we going to do next? As a kind of a final question to everything, where do we go from here? And let's get some feedback. Because actually, if you don't ask the question, people don't think about it. They just, they
go home.
Yeah, and then they go home, and that's it. But actually, I think just asking that question, in the commercial world, I was talking with a company that has a lot of suppliers, and they said, we just started asking on our tender forms, what do you do ecologically? And he said, we're not changing the way that we're asking, but it's changed the way they think, because they suddenly think we care, and they're starting to change the way that they operate, just from asking the question, without actually doing anything. So I think maybe we should really, as a matter of course, build that into the way that meetings are.
Facebook, you talked about Facebook there. Would that not be a thing though? Because I'll have to admit that I wasn't going into Facebook all that much for the project, and I wonder, isn't that something that's very inspiring? If people were able to look in and put little thoughts in Facebook, or reports about the projects that they're involved with. No,
you could use Facebook or Google Plus, but it's the people who come to the meetings aren't always on Facebook.
All on circles in Google Plus.
But all of these inputs, whether they're just web-based or whether they're partly web-based, partly people turning up, or, it's all valuable and everyone's got skills. So I think as next steps, we should probably, us from here, start, if we've got stories that we know of about collaboration, maybe give them to Francis and Jazz to get the sharing of those and the promotion of those collaborations that have already happened
That's a lovely idea.
circulated on the network, and that will encourage people to talk about, oh yeah, I did something as a result of this meeting, and then maybe get that up on the blog or somewhere that and promote the fact that actually people are doing this and they're doing it off their own bat informally, and then that's a real success anyway of the 21st Century Network. So
I think they're huge success stories, but I think they take quite a long time
to come through.
And it's only after they've happened that you think, okay, so how did this start? How did I know that person?
So then maybe we need a process to gather the stories and start documenting and maintaining a record of everything we're doing.
We actually have a tractor in Africa that we wouldn't have had without 21st Century Network.
I think you could send out an email, but I bet you if you did, the response would be very low.
What about video then?
What I was going to say is what Jazz was doing, what I was doing is probably the best way of doing it. With podcasting and the camera going out.
Maybe you could do a competition, ask people to send in 30-second clip of like...
It's too much. I wouldn't do that.
No?
Well, people are
Some people do.
People are different. But
I think you're going out and collecting as well. It's different.
But I just know that feedback forms sent out after a meeting, like an email, has a response of about 1 or 2% if you're lucky.
Or even it's a picture of your collaboration. Send a picture of you working with somebody.
There's part of me that thinks perhaps...
But if you've got a story and you want to tell it, I mean,
I
think it's a different thing asking people, what have you got out of this? Where is the collaboration?
And your idea about doing something at the end of each meeting, we tried it once where someone did a map of people's ideas, and it took so long. It took more of the meeting than it deserved. So we've got to find a way of doing it. It's brief, but
or just give people post-it notes. Put on get a flip chart, put it on the door. Where next from today's meeting? Everyone have a post-it note on their seat when they get there, and have to write something as you leave the room. Your idea of what next?
Or even, do you realise that if you're doing so-and-so, Global Net 20 won't be interested to hear about it? So if you're writing your newsletter for something else, well, send us a copy.
So
if you want to...
So that you can do Jazz's first step connections.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that the collaboration things too, we have to be patient and accepting of very small things. That, I mean, like collaboration conversations, because one of the things came out of one of our collaborations, and people had met several times, but it just came up because we were looking out for each other's, what people needed. A collaboration was simply somebody saying, I'd like to do that, but I can never get out because of childcare. And somebody else said, but I'm studying. I could do my studying out at your place. And it was a
That's an example of the first 3 steps. People made a connection, they had a conversation, and then they contributed to each other.
That's right.
But collaboration is not that. That's cooperation. When you do that repeatedly over a long period of time, and then you start thinking about doing things for the long term rather than the short term, that's when you have to make a commitment. And that's when it becomes collaboration. So collaboration is a grown-up form of cooperation and contribution.
And on that note, why don't we, before we leave, make a commitment to a connection that we're going to follow up, individually, outside, like, let's close this, and then you commit to somebody in this room, something you're going to do between now and the next time this group gets together, or that you see that person. Maybe you see that person between now and the next meeting.
Yeah, we've agreed to connect up.
I'm closing this kind of session.
Can I say at the end, though, thank Nikki for doing this, because, she came from way, past the West of London and got involved in all sorts of hang-ups getting here, made it on
I got pulled over by the police.
And
the M25, taken to New Guildford because I was crying and driving, and apparently you're not allowed to cry on the M25.
So remember that, never cry on the
M25.
But I mean, she made it, and I'm so pleased that someone did it in a different way to my boring way of doing things, so it was great.
You will not show emotion.
She
drives like a robot.
I ended up near Staines. And I was like, I've got to get back.
I got 2 dramatic texts from Nikki, on the way, saying, I don't know if I'm going to make it. Can you pray for me?
that
Even
way.
though I don't believe, I'm sorry. But obviously he does exist because his answer.
Well, listen, whether you believe or not doesn't matter.
It's
I'll
the
tell you what,
energy.
it's energy.
It's putting that energy out there.
I go along, I'll take the towers.